My daughter, once cheerful and talkative, lost her smile and hardly spoke. Worried, I consulted my husband, but he angrily said, "It's just a typical teenage rebellion. Don't worry about every little thing." Suspicious, I decided to install hidden cameras to confirm the truth between my husband and daughter. On a later day, pretending to go out, I hid in the yard, took out my phone, and rushed into the house upon seeing the footage of the two, desperate to help Evelyn. My name is Lillian, 40 years old. I've been married to Tyler for 15 years. Initially, I focused on raising our daughter, Evelyn, who was born 13 years ago. However, when Evelyn started kindergarten, I returned to work, and now as a working mother, I juggle between work, household chores, and parenting. My husband works in sales for a medical equipment company. He had rejected his parents' request to take over their dairy farm, declaring that he didn't want to endure such a harsh job. Upon graduation, he moved out of his parents' house. His strict upbringing from his diligent parents led him to be tough on our daughter, Evelyn. "Hey Evelyn, it's already 6 p.m. Isn't it late for you to come home? If you're going to be late, at least give us a call." "Ugh, you're so annoying." Evelyn covered her ears and grumbled about my husband's nagging. "Your dad is just worried about you, Evelyn. He's been a doting parent since forever." Being a doting parent is so creepy. What's creepy about it? Okay, I got it. The two often quarreled this way, and it was my role to mediate. Since entering middle school, Evelyn had been complaining more about my husband's nagging, but I felt happy that she could express her opinions without reservation. Despite their arguments, I found their parent-child fights endearing, and at that time, I believed we were just a normal, close-knit family. One day on my day off, I was preparing to go to the gym where my father served as a self-defense instructor. Since I started working, I didn't get a chance to exercise much, so I started going back to the gym to stay active. Despite inviting Evelyn and my husband each time, they always declined, saying it's been much of a hassle. "I'm tired, so I'm going to relax at home." Every time they would decline, so each time I reluctantly headed out alone. "I'll be back before dinner." "No fighting, okay?" "I got it. Have a good time." I left for the gym, being sent off by Evelyn's amused smile. Evelyn has an innocent personality, often laughing and talking. She is like the sunshine of our home. Even when things were tough, she is my irreplaceable treasure, so her smile could make everything better. Little did I imagine that her smile would be lost. "Yeah, I'm home." Returning exhausted from the gym, I entered the living room to find only my husband. Where's Evelyn? In her room, I guess. I questioned my husband's words. She always sat in front of the TV in the living room around this time because the TV show she always watches is on. "Evelyn, your usual show is starting." I called while knocking on Evelyn's room door, thinking she might be asleep. After a few seconds, the door opened slowly. "Sorry, I was sleeping," she said, laughing, but I sensed something was wrong. It seemed like she was forcing herself to laugh. "What's wrong? Is something bothering you?" "What? Oh, I have to hurry or the show will end." Rushing to the living room to avoid me, watching Evelyn's back made my chest feel uneasy. Even though she was so lively in the morning, something was clearly wrong. I headed to the living room, and after Evelyn went to bed, I discreetly asked my husband, "Hey, Evelyn doesn't seem well, right? Do you know anything?" "I don't know. Maybe she had a fight with a friend through a text." My husband's suggestion seemed plausible. We had given her a smartphone as a gift for entering middle school, and she was really happy, frequently talking with her friends. Besides, she was already 13 years old, likely facing various teenage problems. There are things she might not want to tell her parents. While I was concerned, I decided to wait until Evelyn opened up herself. However, contrary to my hopes, the situation continued to worsen. A month later, the once talkative and cheerful Evelyn became increasingly withdrawn. She hardly spoke, and the lively discussions about school events and her favorite idols ceased. I couldn't recall the last time I saw her smile. Feeling something was seriously wrong, after Evelyn went to bed, I decided to consult my husband. "Evelyn has been down lately. What should I say in times like these? Teenage girls are like that, right? Maybe prying too much isn't a good idea. Let her be. Giving her space is also an act of kindness." Saying that, my husband ended the conversation and went to bed. I couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. She seemed like a completely different person, and I just couldn't leave my daughter alone. The next morning, with my husband off to work, I seized the opportunity when it was just Evelyn and me. I asked her, "Evelyn, is there something bothering you? You're not your usual self." Evelyn momentarily widened her eyes, but quickly became expressionless, saying, "It's nothing. Leave me alone," and left the house. Seeing Evelyn reject me like that, I wondered if my husband was right, and maybe it was better to leave her alone. However, as I continued to carefully observe Evelyn's behavior, I noticed something. Is she afraid of her dad? I thought it might be my imagination, but my daughter was clearly avoiding her father, displaying a frightened demeanor. While she used to respond to her father's scolding with defiance and express her opinions, lately, she seems to shrink back whenever he says something. When it looks like she might be alone with her husband, she either locks herself in her room or avoids making eye contact. Her actions were really unnatural. Something is definitely wrong. That evening, I inquired if my husband had any idea what was happening, but he shouted, "Stop nagging. It's just a rebellious phase. I'm tired from work." I was astonished. My husband is not someone who raises his voice at me. Clearly, something is off with my husband as well. Maybe there's something between the two. Filled with such anxiety, I decided to find out what was happening at home when my husband and daughter were alone. To observe their behavior when I'm not at home, I opted to install a hidden camera. Upon a quick online research, I found that a pet camera is budget-friendly and easy on the wallet. You can monitor the video and audio on a smartphone, and even record. So, I decided to purchase one. On the next day off, I discreetly installed the pet camera in an inconspicuous location, and I lied that I had to work that day as I left the house. Stealthily hiding in the garden, I checked the footage on my smartphone. To my disbelief, I witnessed an unbelievable scene. My husband went out of his way to summon our daughter from her room to the living room, berating her for various faults, shouting, "Wash your own cup. Your table manners are filthy. You're too unfriendly, be more pleasant. You and those colleagues at work, all incompetent and useless, getting in my way. Yet why do they keep getting promoted? It doesn't make sense." I saw a side of my husband's expression that I had never witnessed in our 15 years of marriage. His anger escalated beyond shouting. He forcefully pushed our daughter's shoulders and pounded the table with clenched fists. Startled by the noise, our daughter's shoulders twitched and her face stiffened in fear. Witnessing such a distressing scene, my chest tightened. To my further disbelief, my husband intentionally bumped into our daughter as she obediently washed the cup as instructed, causing her to fall. Overwhelmed with anger after witnessing the whole ordeal, I stormed into the house, shouting at my husband, "What are you doing?" In the midst of my anger, I rushed towards my fallen daughter. She weakly smiled, assuring me, "I'm used to it." Tears welled up in my eyes. I saw her swollen, red forehead, perhaps from when she hit her head when she fell. Used to it. To think she endured such treatment repeatedly since that day she started acting strangely. Most likely, since that day when my daughter seemed off, she had been subjected to verbal abuse and violence. I couldn't fathom how much pain, sadness, and terror she must have endured. I put myself in her shoes and blamed myself for not noticing sooner. "Sorry. I'm so sorry, Evelyn." Apologizing, I hugged my daughter tightly. "Mom, it's okay, I'm okay." While saying that, my daughter gently stroked my back. Despite being the one in the most pain, she was comforting me. My eyes welled up in tears, but I tried hard to hold them back. Then, I confronted the person responsible for treating my daughter so horribly. "Explain this. What on earth is going on?" I shouted, protecting my daughter while hiding her behind my own back. "You explain what the hell you're doing. You were supposed to be at work today." My sudden appearance left my husband speechless, and realizing the situation, he angrily shouted back. Faced with my husband's evasive responses, my anger boiled. "That's beside the point. Answer my question." Undeterred by his yelling, I confronted him with a steely gaze. Despite being cornered and taking a few steps back, my husband countered in defiance. "She's just like those idiots at work and wouldn't listen to me, so I disciplined her." I can't have her turning into someone who disrespects me like those people." My husband's fervent explanation left me speechless. "So, in essence, you were relieving workplace stress by taking it out on our daughter under the pretext of discipline." My anger reached its peak at this unbelievable revelation. Using your own daughter as an outlet for stress and deliberately knocking her down. You're a disgrace as a father. My furious expression momentarily caught my husband off guard, but he quickly started babbling. "It wasn't intentional. I just accidentally bumped into her." Accidental? How dare you tell such childish lies? What you did is a clear case of assault. I'll call the police right now. Hearing this, my husband seemed terrified at the mention of the police and faltered in his words. To drive the point home, I played the recorded video on my phone for him. "After watching this, it's evident that you intentionally bumped into her." My words were met with a resentful glare from my husband, who suddenly lunged towards my phone. Swiftly, I grabbed his collar and right sleeve, lowering my stance and executing a shoulder throw. He fell, hitting the back of his head and groaning in pain. Looking down at his pitiful state, I coldly remarked, "You should have learned some self-defense." Subsequently, I used a video footage from the pet camera as evidence in filing for divorce mediation. Although my ex-husband initially refused the divorce, when I informed him, "If you won't accept the divorce, I'll report you to the police for violating child welfare laws and have you arrested," he agreed to the divorce with a pale face. Some may criticize my leniency, but driven by the need to sever ties with this man as quickly as possible, and a final act of compassion toward a 15-year-long partner, I prioritized the divorce. In addition, considering the severity of his actions, my ex-husband was ordered to pay $30,000 in compensation. His abusive behavior towards our biological child, causing mental distress, was a significant factor in increasing the settlement. Upon learning of the situation, my in-laws, acknowledging their shared responsibility, graciously paid the entire compensation. As life gradually returned to normal, my in-laws visited us to express their apologies. They likely wanted to see their granddaughter's face as well. I checked with my daughter to see if she wanted to meet, but my in-laws have always adored her, watching her grow with affection. With no reason to resist their visit, my daughter warmly welcomed them, reuniting after a long time. The in-laws sincerely apologized to us, then requested to speak privately with my daughter. Then they informed me about my ex-husband's current situation. Unable to cope with stress at work and the added pressure of divorce, he had a meltdown at his workplace, berating his superiors and ultimately getting fired. He reportedly went on a rampage at work, berating his superiors with the question, "Why don't you give me a fair evaluation?" and ended up getting fired. Consequently, my in-laws decided to take him in, having him take over their family dairy farm. As an apprentice, he tirelessly worked with the cows every day. Every day he worked himself to exhaustion. My in-laws blamed themselves for not being able to raise their son to become a good father. They said they will drill proper behavior into him once more. After one more goodbye to my daughter, they left. Throughout this ordeal, my in-laws were supportive, and without them, I doubt the divorce would have been finalized so swiftly. My daughter was unwilling to visit her father, as I was applying for a restraining order, but my ex-husband was doing a lot of terrible things to my daughter, whining about wanting to see her. Thanks to my in-laws' intervention, visits were restricted, and they promised to monitor him to ensure he didn't attempt unauthorized visits. Because they were checking every month, child support was always paid, which was reassuring. I am truly grateful for the occasional delivery of homemade cheese and butter. Well then, I'm off to the gym again today. As I announced my departure, my daughter stopped me. "You know, maybe I should try going to the gym too," she said with a slightly embarrassed expression, surprising me. "What made you decide all of a sudden?" I asked, restraining my excitement. She smiled and said, "Because Mom looked so cool that day." Yay! Let's do it together. Can I learn some self-defense too? If you keep practicing, you'll get there. I will teach you. "Geez, Mom, you're getting too excited," she said while laughing. Overwhelmed by emotions, I tried my best to hold back tears, and together with my daughter, we headed to the gym. Since then, my daughter's bright personality came back little by little, returning to her former chatty self. From here on, I will continue to protect your smile and lead peaceful days together.